we are back again with part 2, which is technique. First, I'm squeezing down really tight. What that does is it actually takes that round crimp tube and bends it like a moon, and it puts a little bend in the middle of it. Then you bring it out to the second little hole and you crimp it sideways. So now you've got it bent, the second hole crimps it together, and you've pinched it around the wire so the wire doesn't come off the end. And then you go to the other end and you do the exact same thing. Learning how to crimp, you can make bracelets, necklaces, earrings. That is one of the simplest techniques to master, is crimping a wire, beads on a wire. But you can be so flexible with what you make just with that one simple technique. The next technique, and as you can tell, I have a handful of tools up here that I use. Let me just take a second and stop and kind of go through some of what tools I use on a day-to-day basis. I have several different pliers that I like to use. I use a chain nose plier. This particular chain nose has little grooves inside of it, so it helps me grip the wire as I'm pulling on it or twisting it. This, as you can see, is all round. It's called a round nose plier. It helps me twist and make circles with my wire. And then I have cutters that are called a flush cutter, because you can see it angles in and it cuts it flush. Whenever you cut a wire, it cuts flush. The crimping tool we just talked about. This is helpful when my beads hole doesn't fit the wire I'm trying to put through it. It's called a bead reamer, and it actually goes through and twists around to where it makes the hole in the bead just a little bit bigger. And then my last but not least, my handy dandy hammer and steel block. And I'll show in the next segment, when I actually create something, how I really take advantage of my hammer and block. So, like I said, after you've strung the beads on the wire and crimped it, you can then utilize jump rings. And jump rings, I'm going to see if I can pull one off here and show you. On, off, I use jump rings at the top of earrings. It's a great connector to put pieces together. But like I said, the big important thing about a jump ring is don't pull it apart. Push it back and forth, almost like a bicycle feel. And then you pull it back together, and you can feel how the little pieces touch at the end. If it doesn't touch, whatever you put in there, it's going to come right out. And that's going to be the worst feeling. It's like, wait, I had that on there. The last technique is something I call a wrapped wire wrapping. It requires that you take a piece of wire and your tools and you use it to wrap whatever you're working with. This is a perfectly good example. You can see here, it looks like a chain is going between all of these stones, right? Yeah. I literally cut pieces of wire and wire wrapped every single little stone. See that? See how you wire wrap? But it looks like a chain when you just look at it. Yeah. It takes a long time. In fact, I was actually very afraid when I first tried to do that. I was a big chicken. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. Finally, I thought, I got to learn how to do it. I got to do more than just string. So I sat down at the kitchen table and I spent all day to make one necklace. But now, 5 years later, I have done thousands. I could probably do wire wrapping in my sleep. So practice, practice, practice. It makes it much easier. So what you do when you wire wrap is you take whatever length of wire you need. Then you use your tools that are the round nose pliers. You're going to take and bend that wire back, like you can see almost an L. Then you take the top of the wire and pull it around and push it to where it makes kind of a little loop. See? Yeah. Then you hold on to that loop, take your chain nose plier, grab the bottom, and bring it around. And then you trim off the excess. And as you can see, you got a little loop there. Got a little loop. and nothing is going to make that loop. It'll hold as steady as you need it. And that is called a wrapped loop. Once you learn the wrapped loop between being able to crimp on a wire and wrap a loop around a stone, your possibilities are endless. Just these few techniques, jump rings, crimping, and wire loops, you can create any possible combination of jewelry you can think of. It really has been very fascinating. So what do you guys think? What do you think about this?
I think it's cool.
It's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is it hard to twist the wire?
You want to try it?
I'll try soon.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. What you want to do is come down a little further for yourself. Bend it back. Now hold on to it with this hand and let go. Bring your finger and pull the wire over the top of the round nose. Don't worry, you're not going to hurt it. It might hurt you. It's stiff, okay? And now let go and kind of hold it back there and keep pushing it down. Okay, very good. Now, let go. Now see how you have that, what I call, it's like an L?
yeah.
What I find makes it easier is to hold on to it this way. You don't have a big tail here, so it's kind of tough, but you can feel, and this wire isn't real easy to work with. You can actually just stop right there when you use thick wire and trim it, and it won't go anywhere. And that's considered a simple loop as opposed to a wrapped loop. So you can just have a simple loop. Did you say you wanted to give it a try?
Yeah.
There you go. You're going to hold. You're going to pinch the wire like this and bend it back 45 degrees. Nope, back. There you go. Now take your hand, hold onto the wire with your pliers, and take your fingers over the top. Bring it over the top. Very good. Keep pulling down. And now, yep, exactly. Kind of push it down until it makes that L. Perfect. And then you can trim the edge. See, I told you they get sticky. You want to trim the edge as close to the wire as possible. So if you turn that around, see how close you can get to where the other wire crosses it. Nice work. Now take this plier and flatten it together.
Flatten it.
Flatten it. Pinch hard. Very good. And you guys have to understand, I gave you very thick wire to kind of, because I thought it would be easier to see. When you're working with the kind of wire that I typically use, it's much thinner and softer, so it wraps easier than what I was asking you guys to do. But you did an awesome job. Thank you. So, what do you think? Would you ever like to try making it sometime?
Yeah.
I think it'd be kind of fun. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely have to let you guys know because I'm actually going to start teaching some classes here this summer, so. I think we're all good to go then. Thanks a lot. Okay, now what we're going to do, we've talked a little bit about design, we talked a little bit about technique, so what I wanted to do now is actually show you how I make some jewelry. So I thought I'm going to make a pair of earrings like what I'm wearing here, because these are really popular and they're very simple to do. What I do is I use 20 or 18 gauge wire. Now gauge talks about how thick the wire is. The smaller the number, the thicker the wire. As you can see between these two wires, this one's a lot thicker. This is 12 gauge, this is 18 gauge. You're thinking that doesn't make sense. The bigger the number, the littler the wire. That's just all you have to remember. So what I do is I take my 18 gauge wire and my handy dandy hammer, which happens to be the perfect size for earrings, and I wrap my wire twice, because I'm making a pair of earrings, around the end of my hammer. Now I've got a perfect little circle. Then I take my clippers and clip across all the wires so that I have two little earring wires. Then I take my round nose, because I'm going to make a little hoop at the end, and I just curl it right around the plier. See? See?
Yes.
Do that with the other side. And now that's what the pearl is going to dangle on. Now, to make it easy to go in your ear, on the back side of the earring, I just give it a little bend, like so. Little tiny bend. And then I take whatever stone, in this case, I'm going to use a coin pearl. These are freshwater pearls. They're called coin because of the shape. There are rice pearls, potato pearls, all kinds of different shapes, and they can also be dyed in different colors. Then I put a straight pin through the hole that's in the pearl. And as I was showing before, I take my wire and I do that loop around. And because this wire is thin, I can actually use my hand to kind of just twist it around a couple of times to hold it in place. Trim off the extra piece. Then, remember how we talked about the jump rings? What do we not do with a jump ring? What did I say about don't ever do this with a jump ring? Does anybody remember when I want to open it? How do I open it? I don't pull it apart. I twist it. I twist it back and forth. I do not pull it apart. That's the big thing to remember with a jump ring is twist it towards you, don't pull it apart. See how?
Otherwise it'll be like straight.
It'll be straight and it won't go back together. Then I put the pearl on one end, see? And then I put it on the other end. Okay, that's how we're gonna dangle that. Almost forgot one of the best things. I hammer it. When you actually hammer metal, it hardens it. If I just left it alone, this wire was pretty soft, it would just bend and it wouldn't hold its shape. When you hammer it, it hardens the metal so it keeps the shape. And then you have your pearl that you put in. You close it back up and make sure it's really snug. And voila, you have an earring. See?
Do you
Sure, go right ahead.
do you make caps for them?
Sometimes I put little caps on the end. Are you talking about on the end here or on
No,
the
I'm
end?
talking about for them.
I don't on this type because when you make a big earring wire like this, it will stay in your ear. It won't fall out, so you don't need to worry about putting a back on it. But that was a good question. So that is how you make a basic earring. And you can make your own earring wires, or you can go to the store and you can buy pre-made little earring wires, and then you can attach your little stone or pearl right on a pre-made earring wire. Just kind of depends. The other thing I wanted to show you is something that I love to do. This is a sea glass and leather bracelet, and the cool thing about this is you can make this without any tools. You'll need a little pair of scissors at the end to trim off the leather, but you really don't need to you won't have to go buy tools, and you can make this little bracelet. The trick again is I take leather cord and I use leather and hemp or any type of cording. That comes in millimeters. Wire comes in gauges. So I take 1.5 millimeter, 1.5 millimeter, only because that's the size that fits through my stones. And I need 36 inches. You can measure it, but I know that this is 36 inches. And then you cut it. You're going to fold the leather in half.
Then you have to make a knot.
And we're going to make a knot at the end because you're going to make your little loop.
Okay.
And just
So
knot
how long would this one take on average?
about 15 minutes. You'll see it. We'll have it done here, but not even that long.
Oh.
Although I've gotten pretty fast too. So you want to make a little loop because that's going to go over the very last stone. Okay? Then you're going to just use one of your leather strands and you're going to come in about a finger width and knot it. Just a simple knot, as you can see, just a simple knot. And then you're going to come down here and stick your stone on it. and then you're going to knot on the other, see how I put the stone on? The knot on the other side of the stone. And sometimes you have to play with it because your knot doesn't always land where you want it to, so loosen it up and nudge it down until you get it on each side of the stone, okay? Then again, go in about a finger width, do another one, and you're going to put 3 stones on one piece of leather, one side of the leather. In this case, I'm going to alternate the colors because I like to mix the blues and the browns. I just taught this to a class a couple of weeks ago, and they all really liked it. They all made them in all different colors. Everybody was having fun with it.
What grade was the class?
The first class was 4th and 5th graders, and then the next class was 6th through 8th graders. So I was actually very impressed that, you know, the hard part I think was getting them all to sit still long enough. So once you have 3 on one side, you're done with that side. Now you come to your other strand and you match them up. And what you want to do is put a knot where you left off. So as you can see, I'm leaving this part all loose. I'm going to put a knot kind of in the middle. Then we're going to put 3 on this side.
On the other side.
Yep, exactly. And that's how you get the balance. If you look at that, see how it has, half of it has just a plain and then knotted. This is knotted at the top and plain at the bottom. But when you wear it together, it all fits. So you knot that. And a couple more here. You can hand me a blue stone there. Thank you. Have you guys ever seen anything like this before?
No.
No,
Not really? Well, see, this way you can have presents ready for everybody. Okay, now you put it together and you can kind of see how now it all looks like they all match up, right? So now we're going to tie them together. The strands, we'll tie the strands together at the end, both of them. That way you got a nice tight knot at the end. Then do we have a blue one? One more blue one?
Yeah.
Alrighty. This one is going to actually be the clasp. So you put this on in the middle and you tie both of them around on it at the end again. This is where sometimes if your strings are getting kind of short, it's nice to have these little tools to kind of squeeze in and pull that leather out, because otherwise it can get kind of hard to pull.
Yeah, it would take time to.
Yeah. So you have those little things, and I just, again, you can use scissors. I use my cutters. You pull it off. Stick your arm up here, and it just pulls through like that. Voila. You're all done. So that's how easy jewelry is to make. It's fun to always try to come up, like I said, come up with new ideas, mix colors that you wouldn't think would work. I always tell people, it doesn't have to be what everybody else wears. The cool stuff is what only you have, you know? One of a kind, you're one of a kind. I think your jewelry should be one of a kind. So I just want to say thanks, you guys. You made this really fun to come and hang out with you. I really appreciate it.